I have been very unhappy with my husband in the past 3 years since our child was born. I'm Asian, my husband is European, and we have been together for 12 years. Our son has been going to daycare since he was a bit over 3 months old. Every now and then, he gets a virus from daycare and gets sick, and then my husband and I are also sick. For the past 3 years, I cannot remember how many times we have gone through this sick cycle. All I remember is that so many nights we have been changing my child's clothes and bed sheets because he throws up in bed. And so many times we have been throwing up in bed ourselves while struggling to stay up to take care of him. Slowly I got better, still got sick, but recovered quickly. But my husband still got sick, and it took a long time for him to recover. When I was sick, I would still struggle to take care of my son as a parent. When my husband is sick, he couldn't do anything, he just went to sleep. So many times I took care of my son alone at night and got up again myself alone in the morning from 5 o'clock, then went to a full-day job. My unhappiness and loneliness in raising the child reached its peak when my son was over 1 year old and had a middle ear infection. As first-time parents, we didn't know what was going on. For countless nights, my son cried every 10 minutes, half an hour, or even an hour at night, needing to be rocked in my arms. I had just started a new job in a top tech company. It was extremely stressful, but I couldn't get any sleep at night. With no sleep, I would get up in the morning to take care of my son, taking him to the doctor almost every other day. After many months of medicine and antibiotics, the general practitioner here finally referred us to the hospital for ear tube surgery, and the doctor said I should get some help too. At the time, my immune system was very low. I had allergies and eczema all over my face after not having sleep for 6 straight days. I asked my in-laws if they could come for one night to take care of my son so that I could sleep for one night, as the doctor thought I needed some help. They said they were sick too. I know it was a polite no because they later never checked on me to see how I was doing. I remember how lonely I felt when I was broken and tired. My husband just slept through it all. He almost never got up in the mornings during the first 2.5 years of my son's life. During weekdays, he would sleep until 9 or 9:30 in the morning when I had already taken my son to daycare, and on weekends, he slept until 11, so I had taken my son for a whole morning activity. If I really asked him to get up to take care of our child, he wouldn't hesitate for a second, but I really didn't want to see his grumpy, depressed face. If he doesn't get enough sleep, he feels sick, so I would rather do everything myself. To be fair, when he takes care of our child, he is a good dad, but he doesn't like when my son gets him dirty or messy. It is also very different when inside the house and outside the house. When he is inside the house, he is a sweet daddy and a very funny husband, but when we are outside in public, he doesn't talk to my son or me. He always pays attention to other people and is always mindful of whether our child would disturb others or not. I'm always envious when I see other dads playing football with their children, or taking them swimming, or just laughing like no one cares. There have been signs of him paying attention to other people and their opinions rather than us for a long time. One example that still hurts my heart is when we went to the store to pick up our wedding rings. My ring dropped from the attic of a typical Dutch Amsterdam house to the basement via the old iron staircase, falling for about 5 floors. When I questioned the store about the scratches, the store owner said there were no scratches, and my husband agreed with them. His sister, who is a jewelry professional, confirmed the scratches later. But just by looking, the scratches were very obvious. This really hurt me. So I don't wear my wedding rings because it brings back this unhappy memory. This year has been extremely difficult because my husband had an extremely rare cancerous tumor. It took more than 2 months for the diagnosis. He had the tumor for about 4 years, but didn't tell me because he was afraid I would force him to see a doctor. He didn't go to the doctor, afraid it was nothing, fearing he would be laughed at. My husband is not stupid. He has a master's degree from a top university and works in a strategic role in a famous tech company. The surgery and recovery have both been very difficult. I prayed every single day, but fortunately, there was no chemotherapy or radiotherapy needed. I I still feel very emotional about this journey and grateful that, out of the unlucky situation, we are still quite lucky. However, in the process, I also didn't know if my husband had realized that it was not just him in this. In the call from the surgeon informing us of the final decision from the hospital tumor board, I insisted that my husband let me know so I could ask my questions too, but he didn't. I guess he was afraid I would ask too many questions, so he would lose face, but that again hurt me. I told myself during this cancer journey that if we got through this, we could get through anything. But reality hit me. Although I really love my husband, I felt so unhappy sometimes, lonely with no one to talk to and feeling uncared for by him at all. My heart always hurts from his indifference. I sometimes even imagine if our roles were switched, would he care for me? Then I feel like I have nobody in this country. He doesn't like to socialize, and we don't have any friends. I don't feel his family is my family. They are very cold. I also never feel respected by his family. When my husband told his family that he had a Chinese girlfriend, his parents' first reaction was to ask why he didn't find a Dutch girl. They believe there are many nice Dutch girls in this world. His third sister's response was to think carefully about arranging a visa for me because I would be a burden to him. I guess they don't have anything to say now because I work in a top tech company. I have never felt that they treat me with respect. I recall my first winter in the Netherlands. During a family gathering, I didn't close the living room door, and his third sister rolled her eyes at me and slammed the door. Also, his mom is a housewife. She was surprised that I work full-time. I work for a United States company, and there is no option for part-time work. Otherwise, I would be more than willing to work part-time. When my husband had the surgery, none of his 3 sisters were at the hospital with me, nor were his parents. His parents cared, but asked me to update them via WhatsApp. His parents are traditional and don't show emotions, and I hate that. I can never integrate into his family, which makes me feel extremely lonely in this country, even after 10 years. A few weeks ago, I told my husband there was a trial extracurricular class for toddlers, and I registered our son to see if he liked it. I mentioned it needed a 9-minute drive to the location, and my husband got really mad and slammed the door at me. This almost never happens, and it doesn't feel like him at all, as he hates driving. I felt so upset about this. Normally, he doesn't have much of a temper. He is quite gentle and silent. I almost forgot to mention, my husband is a very kind and nice person, but I'm just very disappointed since our child was born. He is also getting better at taking care of our son after we had the traumatic journey this year. He asks me every morning now if he should get up to take care of our child. I keep telling myself I should be grateful. I just don't know how I can be happier in this marriage, even though I really love my husband. I am constantly in self-doubt. Do I know what true love is? Shouldn't I be tolerating his weaknesses as much as I appreciate his strengths? Or, when I say I love him, do I not understand how it is to truly love someone? Also, out of this unhappiness, I've also had a lot of happiness. So am I just unhappy in a gray zone because there is no absolute happiness or unhappiness? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Sorry, but he sounds like a pain. He definitely needs to improve his behavior. Wake him up when your son is crying and make him take his share of parental responsibilities. You should take some time for yourself and visit the Valua, Zealand, or do a city trip. Let him handle the care for your son, either by doing it himself or asking his parents for help. I know Dutch families can be somewhat colder or different. Understandably, this can be difficult to deal with. What kind of role do they play in the life of your son? If you ever feel like talking, feel free to message me. Our son is almost 2 years old, and I know things can be hard. Plus, I'm in the Netherlands too. Comment 2. My husband is a very kind and nice person, except he isn't. A loving and kind person doesn't treat their life partner and the mother of their child with contempt. A nice man doesn't sit by watching his wife struggle and not lift a finger to help. He doesn't ignore her or their child. Your husband doesn't defend you to his family. He doesn't care for you when you're ill, and he doesn't thank you for what you do for him. What does he do to make you happy? Better yet, what does he do to not make you miserable? Now for the update. 2 days after my last post, I was feeling exhausted but a bit hopeful. My husband and I had a serious talk about our son being sick again. He was really good about it, and I felt like he was finally starting to understand what it's like to be the only parent in the house. Maybe we were finally on the same page. He was very loving and apologetic and promised to be more involved with our son. I had told him that the reason I felt so lonely and overwhelmed was that I was the only one doing anything, and he said he didn't realize it was so bad. Maybe he was just in a good mood because he was feeling fine that day, but I was grateful for any progress. I even told my mom that we were working on things, and she was happy for us. I just wanted to keep moving forward and not take any steps back. Then, he surprised me by taking a day off work to help with our son. This was amazing, and I couldn't believe it. He took our son to daycare and even made breakfast for me. I was all set to go to work when he suggested we go to a local children's museum with our son on his day off. I was so excited, I could barely contain myself. This was the kind of thing I had been asking him to do with our son since he was born. Even if he wasn't going to do it every day, I was just happy that he was willing to do it at all. We spent the day at the museum, and I was shocked at how much fun they were having together. My husband was actually playing with him, climbing on things, and really enjoying himself. It was such a nice day, and I felt like we were finally becoming a family. Our son was so happy to be with us, and it made me so happy to see my husband bonding with him. I thought that if we had more days like this, then maybe we would be okay. A week later, we went to a birthday party for one of our son's daycare friends. It was at a trampoline park, and the kids had a blast. I noticed my husband talking to another mom, and they were laughing and enjoying themselves. I don't know why, but it bothered me to see him so happy with someone else. I felt like an idiot for even thinking that way because it was such a dumb thing to get jealous about. But there I was. A few days after the party, I noticed he was getting distant again and spending late nights at work. I tried to bring up my concerns during dinner, but he interrupted me and changed the subject. I felt so frustrated. I decided to take the initiative and plan a family outing to reconnect. I booked a trip to a nearby amusement park for the weekend, hoping it would lift everyone's spirits. The night before the trip, I discovered a text on my husband's phone from the other mother, asking for advice on parenting. I confronted my husband about the text, and it led to a heated discussion. He insisted it was nothing but a friendly conversation, but I wasn't so sure. The next day, we went to the amusement park, and our son enjoyed himself, but there was still some tension between us. During a ride, my husband accidentally dropped his phone, and when I picked it up, I saw more messages from the other mother. After the amusement park, we finished the day feeling somewhat better. A few days later, we had a family dinner with my in-laws to celebrate my husband's cancer treatment progress. During dinner, my mother-in-law shared a story about how their family has always supported each other in tough times, emphasizing unity. I felt so annoyed listening to her lecture us about family values when she and the rest of his family had never accepted me. After dinner, my husband stepped outside for a phone call, and I overheard him sounding tense and frustrated. The next day, I got an unexpected call from my husband's doctor about test results. My husband returned home later that day, looking pale and distracted. I asked him about the doctor's call, and he brushed it aside, saying everything is fine. During Christmas dinner, we exchanged gifts, and he gave me a beautiful bracelet but seemed preoccupied. After dinner, I caught him texting again, this time in the corner of the living room, and my suspicion deepened. A week later, I decided to confront him again about our relationship and the messages. He admitted he has been feeling overwhelmed by his illness and has been seeking support from the other mother, who has a similar situation. I was so angry, but I didn't want to ruin Christmas, so I just held it in. We agreed to take a temporary break from discussing our relationship to focus on our son. One evening, after putting our son to bed, my husband asked to talk, leading to a tense discussion about our future. We reached an uneasy truce to focus on our son. Mini update. Things are still tense. My husband and I are avoiding discussing our relationship. We're trying to co-parent as best as we can. I have no evidence of an affair, but I'm still feeling uneasy. I plan to speak with the other mother to understand more about their relationship. Am I the idiot for dumping my boyfriend after finding out he was still talking to his ex? I am a 24-year-old female who has been with my boyfriend, who is a 25-year-old male, for about 2 years now. We live together and have a lot of love and fun between us. I really can see myself spending my life with him. However, there's a recurring issue of his ex popping up here and there. Since the beginning of our relationship, I'd find pictures, old love notes, and just other random items of hers lying around. I even found a large box full of her belongings and photos of them in his closet. She'd reach out to him occasionally, and he was always, I thought, transparent about it when she did. I was always honest about her making me uncomfortable and about dealing with a lot of retroactive jealousy surrounding her, so my feelings are definitely known to him. Well, about a month ago, I found a photo of them in his center console. I told him about it. He apologized and said he didn't know it was there. I left it face up at the top of the console for easy finding and throwing away. I have also expressed my concerns about something going on between them, and he denies it and has even offered to let me go through his phone. A month later, I opened the console looking for something, and her photo is still there. At this point, I'm mostly just embarrassed. Am I being stupid? Why does it take so much badgering for him to get rid of this stuff? It seems to me like he really doesn't want to or doesn't care enough to make sure I'm comfortable. This all got me overthinking and anxious, and I snooped through his laptop while he was at work. My thought process was that, 1, I would get reassurance that he's not talking to her. 2, he has offered to let me go through his phone. And 3, I'd have no problem letting him go through any of my belongings. I did find messages between him and his ex, but they're from a year ago, so about 1 year into our relationship. In the messages, he apologizes for calling her, says it was comforting to hear her voice, and she mentions how he got her all excited to come visit him and see him and his cat, but won't because she doesn't want to ruin what he and I have. Anytime he told me about them talking, he said she was always reaching out to him. So that's one lie that's out. And the fact she talked about coming to visit as if it was his idea makes my stomach turn. I have no idea how to confront him about this. I don't want to break up because I do think a lot has changed in the last year, but I also just feel really foolish. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. On the one hand, did you actually ask him to throw away the picture or any of the other items? Because if not, then it seems clear he hasn't opened his console recently. On the other hand, the messages you found make it clear that as of a year ago, he was talking to her inappropriately. If you think he has changed or moved on from her since then I would probably let this go if you want to stay with him. Comment 2. Does it matter? Would you trust anything he says? I wouldn't. He isn't going to take it well. People don't like being held accountable. The reality is that he very clearly isn't over his ex. She is reaching out to him. He is reaching out to her. It's not over. Now for the update. I'm back with an update because y'all have been super patient with me. So, I confronted my boyfriend about the messages with his ex, and here I am with the tea. 2 weeks had passed since that whole situation went down. He insisted that the messages were in the past and nothing was going on now. He even agreed to delete the messages right in front of me to ease my mind. We decided to go to a friend's birthday party together that weekend, just to get out there and be normal. At the party, the vibe was lively and everyone was having fun. I was trying to be in the moment and not think about the drama, but you know how that goes. I noticed my boyfriend texting someone on his phone during the event. I casually asked him who he was texting, and he said it was a work-related issue. Nothing to worry about, he said. After some time, I saw him step outside to take a call. I know I shouldn't have, but I was curious, so I followed him to hear what he was talking about. Then, I overheard him say, "I miss you, and we should meet up soon." I was done at that point. I confronted him as soon as he came back inside, demanding to know what was going on. He claimed it was a misunderstanding and that he was just being polite. Yeah, right. I decided to leave the party, telling him I needed some space. Back at home, I searched through his stuff again, hoping to find more answers. I stumbled upon a receipt for a hotel near our city, dated a week prior. That date matched with a time he said he was out with friends. I confronted him about the hotel receipt, asking why he didn't mention it. He looked visibly shaken and said it was just a mistake. He didn't stay there. So I asked to see his phone to check any messages related to it. He hesitated, but eventually handed it over, looking nervous. While scrolling through his messages, I stumbled upon a text from his ex confirming a meetup. I was done at that point. He pleaded with me, claiming that he was going to end things with her. I gave him an ultimatum then: cut all ties with her, or we were done. He agreed and promised to block her on all platforms. A few days later, he invited me to a family dinner with his parents. I thought maybe it would help us be normal again. During dinner, his mom mentioned a girl who had called him earlier that week. I was like, here we go again. I confronted him about it later that night, which led to a heated argument. He insisted it was just a friendly call, but I didn't believe him. Realizing this was a lot for me to handle on my own, I decided to reach out to his sister for more info. His sister confirmed that the ex had been trying to reach out, wanting closure. I mean, closure? Really? So, I decided to confront the ex directly through social media. I sent a message asking what her intentions were, looking for clarity. She responded, saying she wanted to meet and discuss their past, but didn't know he was in a relationship. With everything laid out, I presented the situation to my boyfriend one last time. He admitted he hadn't been fully honest about the nature of their conversations. I knew it. That's when I decided to end the relationship. I spent some time with friends, focusing on myself and my goals moving forward. To answer a few questions, my boyfriend and I did have some joint friends, but he wasn't close to the group that he invited me to. I didn't know anyone there. I was still in the apartment we shared for a few months after the breakup, but I have since moved out. I reached out to his sister because she was the only family member I was close to, and she was aware of the situation. I told her everything, and she was very supportive. Am I the idiot for feeling like my girlfriend's emotional breakdowns are manipulative and not genuine? Girlfriend and I have been together for several years, and she and I recently agreed that we want to progress to the next stage in life. I love her, and I appreciate her presence in my life. Unfortunately, over the last several years, our schedules have gotten busy. I work a 9-to-5 at a billion-dollar company here in the United States, and she works in public health care. Stress is part of our lives, and there is nothing we can do about it as we save for a life together. Because of this, I aim to be very mindful and intentional about checking in on her well-being, expressing interest in who she is, taking charge of plans to ensure she can have a stress-free night or weekend often, which she loves, and creating space for intimacy in many different ways. One cannot tango by themselves, however. While I love to take charge of several facets of our relationship, I too love to see when she expresses interest in my hobbies, plans something for me to appreciate me, and intentionally creates space for intimacy between us. Often, it feels like she is willingly forgetful of, or is hoping that I won't notice that she's absent when it comes to being interested in me. I tell myself she's in a stressful public health position that requires a type A personality from a type B personality person. But I get nervous that as soon as we get married and settle down, the status quo with zero deviation from our normal routine will overtake us. Here's the kicker. I'm a pretty calm person, and I was never raised to scream or yell during conflict. So anytime that confrontation happens, I try to calmly approach her and ask what the cause of her general absence has been. Every time, without fail, she reacts viscerally, like someone just told her a family member died. She sobs uncontrollably, shakes, calms down, and falls asleep. After she wakes up, she apologizes profusely for reacting like this, ironically pointing out that a reaction like the one she just had is not a healthy reaction to the slightest bit of conflict. But then she chooses to act like nothing is wrong once the conversation is over. She then over-rotates on being overtly interested in me, leaving me feeling like I'm receiving pity attention. This leaves me walking on eggshells around anything that I feel the need to express my feelings about. I don't know how to approach her about this. but I think she has undergone a considerable amount of trauma trying to earn the approval of men in her life, because her immediate reaction to my proposition to discuss the issues in our relationship is, I feel like I'm not good enough. Even though I never criticize her by telling her she needs to be better in some way, but rather just offer suggestions to help us both get our needs met. How do I help her understand that addressing the issues of our partnership, issues that occur by no fault of either one of us because we have busy lives, does not mean that I am criticizing her or communicating that she is not good enough? Should I write her a letter? Do I bring this up using a different methodology? Rather, I'm trying to create a safe space for us to understand one another and ensure that the responsibility of growing our relationship is shared. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Having worked in healthcare for 15 years and experienced many of the same feelings and reactions she is expressing, please familiarize yourself with the symptoms of burnout. I was much like your girlfriend, bottled everything up, put on a literal and figurative mask, and went to work every day, struggled internally with even the most basic tasks, and then got slammed out of nowhere one night with not wanting to be alive anymore. Looking back, it was simmering under the surface for a long time, but to my husband, it just looked like I was checked out of the relationship and cranky all the time, followed by overcompensating when it was brought to my attention. The night I finally poured it all out to him and told him how long I had been feeling the way I felt, scared the hell out of him, but it also marked a turning point for my own health and our relationship, and enabled me to get help. Not to say this is for sure the case for your girlfriend, but worth maybe talking with her about in a way that is framed that you are concerned for her well-being and not one where you are missing the intimacy. There will be time for that conversation once you determine her headspace, because she seems like she is really struggling. Comment 2. Are you having these conversations after a long day of work where she is tired to the point where she falls asleep right after? You might want to look into having a conversation when she has a day off and has had a lot of sleep, and talk about how her reactions, not your complaints, are really stressing you out, and that you need resolution because you feel like you can trust her to have an adult conversation, which is the cornerstone of a healthy relationship. Now, for the update. 1 week after the dinner, I got a text from Olivia saying we needed to talk. I suggested meeting at a local diner where we used to go for breakfast. When I got there, she was already sitting in a booth, looking tense with her hands folded. I ordered coffee while she stayed quiet, stirring her drink slowly. She started by saying she felt overwhelmed with everything happening in her life. I listened as she explained her work stress and how it was affecting her mental state. Suddenly, she mentioned that her mom had been pressuring her about when we would get engaged. I tried to change the subject, but she insisted we talk about it more. We ended up arguing about the expectations from her family. She accused me of not understanding her situation, which made me frustrated. I pointed out that I was trying to support her, but it felt like she was shutting me out. She got up and left the diner, leaving me sitting alone with my coffee. The next day, I got a call from her mom, who wanted to know what was going on. I explained the situation, but it felt like I was talking to a wall. Her mom told me I should be more patient and understanding. I decided to take a step back and give Olivia some space. During that week, I focused on my job and avoided contacting her. Then, I got invited to a family dinner at my parents' house for my dad's birthday. I reluctantly accepted, thinking it might help distract me from everything. While there, my brother Jake mentioned he was planning a surprise engagement for Rachel. My dad kept asking if I had any plans to propose soon, jokingly nudging me. After dinner, I stepped outside for a breather and noticed Olivia's car parked nearby. I found Olivia sitting on a bench in the park next to my parents' house, looking lost in thought. Surprised to see her, I walked up and asked what she was doing there. She said she needed to clear her head and thought our families were too much pressure. I asked her if she wanted to join us for cake, but she hesitated. Eventually, she agreed to come in, but stayed quiet throughout the celebration. After dinner, everyone gathered in the living room for gifts, and Olivia excused herself. I followed her into the kitchen where she was pouring herself some water. I reminded her that my family cared about us. No, but she snapped that it felt suffocating. She mentioned she had talked to her therapist about our relationship and had some ideas. I asked her to share what she learned, but she seemed hesitant. The night ended with her telling me she needed to think more about everything. I walked her to her car, and she hugged me tightly before driving away. The next day, I got a text from her saying she wanted to meet again. We decided to meet at the park where we first celebrated our anniversary. When we met, she had a list of things she wanted to discuss regarding our future. She said she wanted to work on our communication and find a middle ground. As we left the park, we agreed to take it one step at a time, starting with weekly check-ins. The following week, we planned a day trip to the coast to reconnect without distractions. Edit: many people wanted to know about my girlfriend's past trauma. It primarily involves her father, who was very strict and had high expectations. She often felt she couldn't meet his standards, which made her seek validation from others. Talking to her therapist helped her realize this pattern, leading to our recent discussions. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.